We got some practice in. All right, what's up? All right. See, this is what happens on my non-traditional streaming nights. Usually I try to do Thursdays, maybe some Sundays. But I was feeling a little frisky today, and I needed something to put on the podcast tomorrow. So I'm like, man, why don't we do a live stream? Throw like a very limited kind of bees to honey situation. My man Rob here at Northern Revolutions came in, jump first call to action. I know he just got off of the Glenn Calloway conversation, so he's warmed up, he's lathered up, he's ready for this.
Ready.
And we got some practice questions in because I'm too stupid to realize when to hit that go live button, which I mean, by now you would think, I think this is probably the fifth time I've done this. You would think yeah, well, again, I'm not the coldest beer in the fridge, as they say. Oh, so we got, hey, Trevor's Flat, Round, and Spun Vinyl Community. Hey, guys, what is up, sir? Thanks for popping in. Oh, I should probably throw out the bat signal in case anybody else wants to pop up here. Boom, boom, boom. So what we were doing in the practice round, that actually makes sense. Rob, I'm glad you called me on that because I kept wondering. I'm like, is no one watching? Because
that's what I was wondering.
Because I was kind of thinking, like, this is kind of strange. Not that I was expecting a great turnout, but see, listen, man, my wingman, I appreciate you.
I got your back, Jack.
Thanks, dude. So after that technical faux pas, we were having a practice run, and part of the reason I thought about streaming tonight was one, I'd love to put this on the podcast tomorrow, but more importantly was, gosh, I hate having to retell the story. This sucks.
All right, no, it was a good story.
It was a good story. So 2013, there's that movie. We're the Millers, or We Are the Millers.
We Are the Millers.
I think it was. Now, hang on, pause. This is my new friend Marsha P. Love her channel. Have you seen this channel, Rob?
I have not, but she was watching us over on Glenn's stream a little while ago.
She is extremely funny, and I'm not saying that because she's one of my new concert buddies. She is really, really funny. She's also
I'll have to head over there and check it out.
You should check it out. She's also actually, I think, if I remember correctly, Marsha, tell me if I'm out of school here. I think you're also recently under weather. Rob has been under the weather. It must be going around the community because the illnesses and the sicknesses and the kids coming home with the germs seem to be really rampant. But Let's go back to 2013. Oh, hang on. Before we hit the Wayback Machine, the Music Sanctuary. Hi, guys. Are we going to talk about Nickelback again?
No,
Kidding.
I promise. No.
Well, Rob's making you that promise, but Chad Kroger, I got a big Chad Kroger tattoo on my shoulder blade, right under my barbed wire tattoo. It's above my barbed wire tattoo, so I'm going full 90s by the end of this one.
Should we explain to folks why they're asking that question?
Let's level set. So before Under the Weather Rob came over here, he was lathering up on the Glenn Calloway presentation, and Rob, I'll let you explain.
So every Tuesday, Glenn and Sam and I do a chat, and we have a topic, and this week's topic was 10 essential albums that everybody should have in their collection. And I decided, and I let Glenn and the guys know ahead of time, that my 10 were going to be absolute nonsense. So I was doing stuff like Nickelback and the Spice Girls and Ace of Base, just like
the good stuff.
The good stuff, right? and a few that I liked, but are certainly not essential by any means. But I was playing it totally serious. People in the comments are like, "Are you high? Like, what the hell?" And we had a good laugh about it. And then at the end, I came clean and said I was just pranking everybody. So
you know what would have been even funnier for me, as if you hadn't given them a heads up, and to see those reactions when you start firing those off.
That would have been good.
See the smoke coming out of Glenn's ears. To take the serious conversation, and without him knowing that you're totally deadpanning.
I probably should have, but it was good. It was good fun. But just so if anyone didn't catch that part of the stream, I do actually have, I think, a reasonably good taste in music. That was just for laughs.
Rob is high on the self-awareness meter, except for when he's talking about Nickelback, Spice Girls, Ace of Base. No, they always kick that around about guilty pleasures, right? Ace of Base is a guilty pleasure. I'm going to tell on myself here. We had so last week I was at a work retreat all week, not retreat, but like a sales meeting essentially. And so we went out one of the nights for drinking, right? As you're prone to do it. You're in sales, you know how this goes.
Yep.
And just so happens we're in the Mecca of the cultural elite, Lincoln, Nebraska. And we're at the center, very close to the university, the Cornhuskers. and Wednesday night must be karaoke night at this bar by the hotel. And so, you know, you get the interesting crowd, especially on a Wednesday night. You know, it's kind of like what Hump Day. It's you know, the locals. There was a fella, his name is Tim. I don't think he'll watch this, so I think it's okay to talk about him. But think about like Napoleon Dynamite. Remember Napoleon Dynamite, Johnny Theater? Yeah. So physically Napoleon Dynamite, and he would get up there and sing a song not really well. And then when other people would sing, he was like popping and locking and doing all kinds of breakdancing moves. Like it was insane. Oh, awesome. It was insane, right? So we're just kind of sipping suds, taking it in. So you get a few of these drinks in you, and you're like, hey, this is fun, you know. And so a young lady who reports to me, she's a big Taylor Swift person. She had enough liquid courage. She jumps up there. She did Shake It Off. And so I was like, wow, the gauntlet has been there it is. Taylor Swift debut album. Way to go, buddy.
I am unabashedly a Swiftie.
So. This is true. I knew I was in good company telling this story. So my junior report goes up there, does Taylor Swift, slays it. So of course now I've got enough liquid courage in me. I got to get up there too. So guilty pleasures. I'm gonna give you a hint. So I get up there. 90s, well, I guess 90s to late 90s, early 2000s boy band. I'm gonna throw you little nuggets until you get
it. Tell me why.
Well, we'll come back to that one.
Oh boy!
Try another guess. Think about the other band, the other big band of that time.
You didn't do some NSYNC, did you?
Yes.
Oh no!
Bye. Oh, dude. If you want to talk, listen. If you,
man,
because I learned this. So when I got married to my beautiful wife a couple years ago, we had a band play. And the band, you know, you feel bad for the bands because either it's a hit or miss. Either you've got a real dancing group or you don't. And the band was a good band. And they were just kind of like trying to find their way. And you kind of went up to them. And I was like, hey, do you guys know any like 90s, like 2000s, like boy band stuff just to see what happens? And so they played NSYNC, Bye. Dance floor couldn't have been crazier, right? So anyway, I had this in the back of my mind. So I get up there. And, you know, I asked the DJ, you know, the karaoke guy, I think they're all the same wherever you go. The karaoke guy wants to be part of the show too. So he'll play a couple songs and then they'll get up and do a song of their own.
Right.
And it's like nobody paid to see you, Tito Jackson. You know, I get back to the court, right? So anyway, yep, he's got bye. So I get up there, I'm hitting all the moves, you know, I'm sweating. It's bad news, right? Plus I just switched deodorant, so I'm really just cooking it. Because side note, you need antiperspirant if you're going to do any kind of performances like that, right?
Right.
Axe deodorant doesn't cook it.
Right.
So I get up there, I'm doing it. Well, then I realized about halfway through, I'm like, man, I'm really starting to get out of breath. I'm out of shape. Well, hey, guess what? There's 5 members of this boy band, and I'm just one, you know, middle-aged white guy trying to do all this stuff. So anyway, had a good time with it. So more people get up, perform, yada, yada. And then we're getting ready to bounce to another bar. And I got another coworker of mine. I'm like, dude, we got to do it. We got to close this place down. Backstreet Boys.
Yep.
Tell me why. Yeah. So then less dancing, less theatrics. Meanwhile, Tim's over popping and locking and, you know, just kind of doing his thing. He's doing the robot and all that weird stuff. So anyway.
That's fantastic.
That was a good time. I don't know how I got sidetracked. Oh, Breakfast King of Loyola, Jiminy Christmas Dude. Next thing you know, there are going to be NKOTB impersonations on here. No, that is a firm no. I am Team NSYNC and Backstreet. I can't go to NKOTB. That was when I was like in middle school, so I feel kind of dirty, kind of admitting. Even though I've shown those records on my channel, that's just kind of a thing. Well, anyway, so I am not a proponent or I'm not a believer in guilty pleasures per se, but
I love guilty pleasures. I got a few. So
yeah. I mean, and I forget. I think it was. Oh, goodness gracious. Carlos, who runs I can't remember his channel right now, but he's a young man who runs a record store down in Texas. And he even said this, I'm borrowing it from him. It's not really anything about guilty pleasures, right? So we have Attack from Down Under. What a great name. Hi, guys. Love both your channels. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you. So anyway, I don't know how I got off on that one, but okay, let's go back to the rewind machine. Not so far back as NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, right? But let's go to 2013, that movie, We're the Millers. And again, we already practiced this whole routine. Sorry, before we went live. but it's a Jason Sudeikis movie, Jennifer Aniston. They're like the makeshift family. You know, he's a pot dealer. She's an adult dancer. Anyway, I'm not going to give it. But anyway, the one real takeaway is there's a young man cast in this movie. He's like the Kid Rock type character. He's only a momentary character. And he has that tattoo across his neck that says "No Ragrets." R-A-G-R-E-T. Hang on, help me out, Rod. R-A-G-R-E-T-S.
Something like that, yeah.
Bingo. So it's not regrets how you really spell it. It's anyway. So that got me thinking. I'm like, I kind of feel like live streaming. It's been a minute. What are you going to talk about besides bad NSYNC and Backstreet Boys stories, other than vinyl regrets or things that from your collecting areas? Yeah. See?
Right. No regrets.
No regrets. Oh, hey, what's up? We got Novice Nick. Hey, guys. Good to see you both. Nick. I saw you, Nick, on the Glen stream.
A few minutes.
Yeah, a few minutes. So that was kind of the muse to what I'd like to talk about here is for a little bit is vinyl regrets. And that can mean something you saw and didn't pull the trigger on, something you bought that was a bust, whatever. So for the audience's sake, I know we've already had this first question before I figured out to hit the live button, but Rob, actually, I'll kick it off with mine. That's how we did it, right? Yeah, I got to remember the performance, right? So the one that really inspired this for me was called about 5 or 6 years ago. I was down in I was in Los Angeles at Amoeba Hollywood. And if you've ever been to Amoeba or seen the videos on YouTube or whatever, they have all their expensive, grail, hard to find, rare, whatever you want to call them, records up on the wall. You got to ask for somebody to get them down and that sort of thing. And so 5, 6 years ago, last time it might have been last time or time before. Actually, it would have been a couple of years ago because it was for my 40th when I did the Amoeba Triangle. I went to all the Amoebas. I went to LA. Well, I went to San Francisco first, then drove to Berkeley, and then flew to LA. Anyway, see, that's what a goofy collector I am. So I'm in LA, and they've got the Megadeth Countdown to Extinction record, the MoFi. It's only way you can get that record on vinyl, with the exception of a Brazilian press, maybe a blue, UK. I kind of get it confused with the Euthanasia record. Regardless, it's up on the wall. It's $150. Very tempting. Not cheap. Not terribly expensive, but at the time, this is pre-COVID. This is before the vinyl nonsense.
Still, $150 is a lot to spend.
Yeah. It's not like I'm wiping my behind with $100 bills or anything, right? So something to consider. Plus, in the lead up, I knew about this record, and I knew there was some kind of conjecture on Discogs of whether or not it was the original mix or if Dave Mustaine had changed some of the mix. Blah blah blah. Didn't buy it. And now, fast forward a few years later, post-COVID, everyone's buying records, etc. It's a $500 record. Kills my soul. So that's how this conversation started before we went live. When we were in the green room. Let's call it the green room.
That's right.
Yeah, Harmless Rebel Steve is exactly right. That's a great price. $300 now doesn't sound great though. See, this is what I'm talking about, because there's so much conjecture as if it sounds good, and it's got that MoFi. So you back then you're conditioned to think that was the best of the best. And I obviously know there's a little bit more ingredients in the kitchen, so to speak. But Rob, tell the audience, tell the fine folks listening, what's a vinyl regret of a similar vein for you?
There's been a few. The one that always pops into my mind immediately when I think about this is Sheryl Crow's Tuesday Night Music Club. It's a Record Store Day release from, I want to say like 2015, something like that. It was pressed on blue vinyl. To the best of my knowledge, is the only time it was pressed on vinyl.
Yep.
Love that album. I didn't find it on Record Store Day. I'm up in Canada, for those that don't know me. And a lot of the time, not everything makes it up here. So often I have to resort to Discogs or eBay. And at the time, there was multiple listings for it on eBay, like $40, $45, whatever, which is a great price. The thing that always gives me pause when I buy records off eBay is shipping. Shipping kills us.
Sure.
Because, it's $35, $40 to ship a record from the US to Canada, and you probably get ding customs and brokerage and duties and all that kind of stuff. So I said to myself, this $45 record is going to cost me $80, $90, whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'll find it in the wild. So I never pulled the trigger on it. And now it's a $500 record all day long. I've never seen one in the wild. I don't own one. And if I had saw one now and it was $90 or $100, I wouldn't even think twice. Pull the trigger.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And what's more heartbreaking is what I told Rob backstage was when he shared this one with me. I've seen that record. I own that record. Not a flex, just being honest. But I've seen it 2 other times since. And the first time was when I worked at the Swoosh. I was up in Portland, and there's a great record store there called Music Millennium. And this was like maybe a month or 2 after Record Store Day. So it was pretty fresh still after it was released. They had a used copy. It was open from shrink in the bin. It could have been a play copy for the store. Could have been somebody bought it and said, don't like it, traded it in. $20, right? And I even thought then, see,
that hurts.
I'm sorry you got to relive this one, pal. But and even then, because I was like, I've got to haul these records back with me on the plane, and if I'm home and I find a double like that I know I can probably make a little extra, because like anybody, like several in the hobby, I know flipping is kind of frowned upon, but I traditionally, when I flip records, I'm usually using that money and investing in more expensive records, right? So all that said,
see one, flip it my way.
Well, hey, listen, I already gave you the Concert Buddy pledge. If I see one, I'm going to. So Caesar, hey, Chance and Rob, what's the chat about? So just a real quick rewind before I hit Rob with another Sheryl Crow I saw. Talking about vinyl regrets, things that we've done in our collecting journeys. It could be a record we saw and didn't pull the trigger on. It could be a practice that we used to do when we first started, and I'll kind of get into that. It could be how you clean your records, that sort of thing. So vinyl regrets, what were they? Did we learn anything? Did we change them? Or were we just gluttons for punishment? That sort of thing. All that said, the second Sheryl Crow I saw was, call it 9 months, maybe a year after that Record Store Day. One of my locals had it still in shrink, dead stock. And so, like I was just saying before, if you see it and I'm local, I'm going to get it. I think I moved it around for I think it was like $20 or $30 retail. I think I sold it for probably $120. And again, money went right back into my collection. So anyway, I'm sorry. Hit me with the tomato cans for being a flipper. But I think, honestly, 10 years ago, nobody really cared about flipping or any of that stuff because everybody was doing it to subsidize their collection. Oh, yeah, I found a Robert Ludwig, Led Zeppelin 2 for $10 at a yard sale, and I sold it for $50 to $100 or whatever it was going back then. It was a way to subsidize the collection. So anyway, no, it's Nick, my man. $80 sounds pretty cheap, so very sorry. Flip it this way if you find multiple. Well, now, if you just heard what I told Rob is first dibs. He is my wingman on this presentation and on the YouTube experience as a whole, because we started our channels about the same time. Cheap plug. We had a wonderful conversation about our first year in YouTube. Check it out on the Concert Buddy channel if you are so inclined. But anyway, Rob's got first dibs. Nick, I'll put you down as a strong number 2. If I see Tuesday morning, is it Tuesday Morning Music Club? Is that what it's called?
Tuesday Night Music Club.
Tuesday Night Music Club. Perfect.
Yep.
All right. So another one I had when I was kind of thinking, what's some vinyl regrets? Is, when I first started, because I come from the generation of let's call it late 80s, early 90s. And I
same as me.
Okay, so I collect baseball cards. Did you collect baseball cards?
Absolutely.
All right. See, and I've noticed a lot of collectors of our age or our vintage were similar, right? So, and I know how people store their records can be a polarizing conversation. But when I first started collecting records, I didn't put them in sleeves or any of that stuff. But as I was moving my understanding of collectibles from the baseball card era, put them in a plastic sleeve. And I used to get these terrible. I didn't know, because I'm on the Hoffman forums, I'm on Vinyl Collective forums, what's best practices. That's what led me to YouTube. And I would put them in these giant sleeves that were basically oversized saran wrap. And the worst part was they were made by a company that I knew from the baseball card collecting days that made baseball card sleeves. So I was like, oh, great. They've just extended their
They got to know what they're doing.
They got to know what they're doing. These things were straight up trash. Apparently they could eat your records because they're not acid free. I mean, there's just so much you learn as you kind of ingratiate yourself into the hobby and all that stuff. So fortunately I caught that one early enough. And there was a lot of testing of different types of sleeves, the 3 mils or the do I put the record upside down? All that kind of stuff. Anyway, buying bad outer sleeves was one of the first things that was an instant regret almost. And I still, honestly, in my down in our basement, I still have a giant stack of these garbage things that you wouldn't believe. Oh, here we go. Steve. What's up, Steve?
Hey, what's up, guys?
Oh, thanks for joining, man. All right, Rob, you're up for round 2. What about a vinyl regret? What another vinyl regret?
So, as you pointed out, I'm about the same age as you. I started collecting records in the early 90s when I would have been 14 or so. So I siphoned some stuff off my dad's collection and whatever. And so fast forward to about, I don't know, 2002, 2003, maybe. I'm just fresh out of university. And, I've got, I don't know, 50 records, 75 records, whatever. And how do I put this? I made a very significant mistake in that I married a crazy woman in my early 20s. And that was very short-lived.
Man, this is a Maury Povich shit going on here, Rob. What's going on?
But this is that provides important context.
Fair enough.
So I'm just out of university. I'm still paying student loans. I'm working at the hardware store. I don't know if I was married to this crazy woman yet, or we were just living together. Thankfully, it didn't last long, and she lives halfway around the world and whatever.
Sure.
But I didn't have a stereo at the time. I had my records, and I had a turntable, and I had a Technics SL1200, which, is one that a lot of people like.
Sure.
And I had bought it from somebody for like $40, and it was in great shape, but I didn't have an amplifier, didn't have speakers. So it was just sitting in a closet. And I came home from work one day, and the crazy, insane woman that was my wife or whatever she was at the time, she goes, I was doing some cleaning out today and I wanted to make some room. So I gave away your turntable because you never use it. And I had some choice words. Let's say the air was blue. The long and short of it was, I don't use it because I don't have the rest of a stereo, you crazy person. So
is the regret meeting this woman who did this heinous deed to me?
I mean, that is a huge regret, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
Thankfully, that was a very short period of my life. But the bigger regret was I lost my first turntable, which I loved.
Well, that's a drag.
Yes.
Well, Steve, you hear the topic du jour. I'm hoping you got some goodness, because I'm sure I know you're a deep collector, and you've been doing this probably longer than both Rob and I.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this topic?
A lot of my regrets are more stuff that I sold
Really?
than stuff. I mean, I've run across it. Like, I used to see the Van Halens, like, balance and stuff for $25 all the time,
Sure.
And that was like 4 or 5 years ago, and now they're 100, stuff like that. I don't really regret. I mean, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of those records anyway, but it would be cool to have bought them. But like, I had the Japanese Kiss, the triple album sets, the originals 1 and 2, I had in mint condition. And times got hard 7 years ago, and I was out of work and ended up selling a lot of those and they were like selling for $250 at the time, and or like Sonic Boom. I bought that for like $40 and ended up selling it for like $200. Now they're going for like $450, so it's stuff like that. Stuff that I missed out on, though. I missed out on some really good gear. Really? back when Goodwill still had good stuff.
Sure.
Like, I remember I ran across a really nice a Nakamichi R100 tape deck, which is like a $600 or $700 tape deck, and it was like $30, and I was going to buy it, and I was like, nah, I'll never use it. And then I was like, what am I doing? And I went back like 2 hours later, it was gone. Or I remember running across a Bang & Olufsen, a really nice turntable, but it needed a needle. And the Bang & Olufsen needles are like $200. So I was like, I'm not going to get that. Well, it was like $1,000 turntable, I didn't realize this until I looked it up later, Or I've run across some real nice like vintage speakers, some real nice late 60s, early 70s clipshes that are super, super nice, and left them because I didn't want to deal with it, you know. But so, I mean, I've had some stuff like that. But as a whole, it's mostly, there's a lot of stuff that I sold that I'm not willing to pay the money to replace, you know.
No, that's a good point.
A lot of that stuff that like those Kiss, you know, I'll pay $100 for them, but I'm not paying $400 or $500 what they're going now, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of rough, because exactly what we were talking about. You know, we all have reasons we get off of things. Sometimes life changes, sometimes you're moving, whatever it is, right? But exactly what you're talking about, like trying to reclaim those things. A couple of years ago, reclaiming them was just you're paying maybe a 30% tax, and back then 30% on, call it $50 isn't the big deal, right? But
it's a stupid mind of the collector too, because none of those are albums that I'll listen to, you know. But it's just the fact that I had, or another Kiss one is the Kiss Symphony, the one where the 3 LP symphonic album that they did. It's horrible. All 3 albums are terrible. But I found it for like $35,
sure,
and sold it for like $350, you know. And then like a year later, I was like, "Fuck, man, I shouldn't have sold that." I mean, I'll never listen to it, but it's just that little thing in your head, you know.
That twitch, yeah. Now this is one I saw this one come in. Let me throw this up here. So Caesar says he regrets not buying the OG Nirvana Nevermind when he first started collecting 15 years ago. It's probably like 200, and I thought it was expensive. Now it's $1,000.
That's another album that sounds terrible too.
The original, I think the original sound, like I watched the reason I got it was old In Groove Mike did a shootout, and I had actually been leaning toward, you know, again, before I knew any better. Oh, MoFi. The MoFi's got to be the best. And In Groove Mike did that shootout, and he's like, no, get the OG. And I'm glad I did. One, is a better investment. And two, things I've learned about since about that, obviously the MoFi thing as a whole, but that particular release, it's to think I was going to spend $500 potentially on that record. I mean, I avoided a big mistake.
I prefer the German pressing, the one from a few years ago.
The Palace one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's a
I like that one better.
Because Bernie did that one, if I'm not mistaken, right? Didn't he master that one, or is it?
I don't even know who mastered it. But that's also one of those albums too that, man, I had an original and I sold it to a buddy. It was like his all-time favorite album, so I hooked him up. But I mean, I lived through that, and I'll probably never listen to that album again. I don't know. That album just didn't hold up like the other Seattle bands did. Like Alice in Chains still sounds as good today as it did in 91. Same thing with Soundgarden. Nirvana doesn't have that same appeal for me.
Yeah. Now, Jason Rojas, I actually thought of you kind of when I was formulating this idea for the impromptu. So Jason says, having vinyl regrets, multiple emojis. Just remember, you can always get the record again at either a lower or higher price. At least you can decide what price is right for you. It's very sage advice. Like I said, I was thinking of Jason when I was kind of coming up with this. But at the same time, there are the records that, yeah, you can always find them, right? But there are some records like, what's that one, Fraction Blood Moon? Have you seen that one? That's like a psych. I mean, it's like a $8,000 to $10,000 record. Not that it was ever something for me, but I've seen obviously Dylan Noble.
A lot of those crazy expensive records like that aren't even really great records. It's just the
novelty,
of the
collectability of it. Sure.
Like what's the something? What is it? Is it Weed Hound or Grass Hound or whatever it is? Leaf Hound. The Leaf Hound record is like that. It's like a $3,000, $4,000 psych record. Yeah, or it's like hard psych, early hard proto metal type of stuff.
Okay.
There's a couple of really good songs on it, but those prices are crazy, you know. So I thought it was going to be this amazing album. So when they did a reissue like 5 or 6 years ago, I bought it and I was like, that's it, you know. It's not a bad album, don't get me wrong, but it's not a $3,000, $4,000 record.
It's not a used Honda Accord.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to see Vinyl Richie has joined us. He said most of my favorite albums sound like shit. So
I can't help but wonder, you mentioned the baseball card analogy from when you and I were teenagers, and I got to wonder if we're in that same bubble like baseball cards were in the early 90s, right? Everything was 10 times worth what it should be, and now that vinyl's at its height, you know, I hope it never subsides, but I can't help but wonder if maybe we're on that bubble.
No, I think there's some parallels there, because if you think about baseball card collecting back then, we didn't know it as the kids or teenagers or whatever, but they were mass producing. Same thing with the comic book industry back then. They were mass producing these pieces, and obviously they weren't telling numbers, but I mean, the Griffey Jr. #1 Upper Deck, all those kind of hallmark cards. I mean, if you hear the stories now that they're like warehouses sitting on thousands of these things that have diluted and devalued it. So I think there's probably some truth in that in the current state, particularly, you guys have seen it. There's so many different goofy color variants. Now they're doing cover variants. Like if you get the retail of a version of an album from Target, it's got an there's all these exclusives and FOMOs, and there's all the same kind of predatory retail nonsense. So there's probably, plus if you think about the folks new to collecting in the last 3 COVID years, right? Like it's for lack of a better word, kind of predatory, because it's the people who are kind of getting into it and they get swallowed up in the tide of that FOMO. And
I mean the COVID years, it's true for audiophile stuff, but for regular records, the prices started going up about 5-6 years ago. It started before the pandemic. The pandemic made the audiophile stuff crazy,
sure,
where it was selling out in a day. But the regular records as a whole, they've gone up a little bit. I think it's worse in Canada. I have friends up in Canada.
It's pretty bad up
and
there.
The prices have shot way up. There's certain places here in the U.S. that are jacking the prices up, but most of it's not shit that I'm buying anyway. It's more the pop and the just the popular music in general. Most metal I can still get a double album for about $35 and a single album for under $30. So for the reissues,
we're up 60% for the price of new vinyl in Canada right now.
Yeah, I've talked to I've got a couple friends up in Canada that have said the prices up there are getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
So Trevor's flat, round, and spun vinyl community, looks like a regret for him, is in 1990. I was working in a warehouse of a Detroit record chain. I regret not getting all these new release first pressing for about $10 each as vinyl is phasing out. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people, especially if you were hip to it, and I say hip to it, just you knew, or you were already listening to records, because like a lot of people, and this is what another predatory thing is, the music industry tries to get you to jump formats, right? Because they wanted to push you CD is the best, and they push you to CD and streaming anyway. So what a time. What a time if you could have been in like the late 90s and actually listened to records. And, I'm always amazed when I talk to collectors who actually held on to their stuff from back then. I think Jason Ross may be one of them. He built a lot of his collection when people were down on records. But
I mean, I was in the music scene and I knew very few people that actually kept their collections,
Well, Mazzy says I believe him. I mean, he said he's kept 70% of his collection over the years. I know, obviously, he's talked about getting rid of it and stuff. So,
that's one good thing that's for Vinyl Richie. That's the one good thing about punk. A lot of the punk labels have remained honest, and they're still selling their records for $25 and under. And then I've got friends that have labels, and they tried to make the argument, oh, but it costs this much. I was like, I know how much, because I looked at pressing some records a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And, we charge $40 because we're only making like $4. I was like, yeah, you're full of it, man. I know what it costs to do a run of 300 records,
Yeah, isn't that the minimum is 300?
You're doubling your money on it,
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of shadiness. And they say, oh, well, we're doing limited runs, so it's more expensive. A lot of these punk labels are only doing runs of like 150, 250, and they're still selling them for $25 a piece. So, a lot of it's just marking stuff way up because Sony's doing it, or you can get away with it. So,
yeah, usually it's, especially when the bigger labels are doing it and they keep pushing those price points up and up and up. They're trying to test that price elasticity. Like, there's definitely a lot of that going up, because if you think back, even as recent as like a year ago, remember there was that news about, the new price list. I think it was Toad Hall Records had a video about he got a new price list for his distributors. Some of that came to fruition, some of it didn't. But then
that guy marks his stuff way up anyway. He, I remember during the pandemic, some of the MoFi stuff, he was getting direct. He gets it direct from MoFi, and he was charging $20 over the MoFi MSRP. Wow. $20 more than everybody else was. So I stopped. I unsubscribed from his stuff, and I was like, yeah, screw this guy. I don't mind, marking your stuff up a little bit, but stuff like that where you're just jacking up the price like that to be a dick,
Rob, why do you jack the prices up in your industry?
Make more money.
You son of a gun.
Yeah, the RSD prices have gotten a little crazy too.
Yeah, Vinyl Richie, the RSD prices this year are high.
But the bad thing about the RSD prices is the record stores are getting screwed on that because
That's it.
I've got like 5 friends that own record stores. They're only getting like $3 a record on the record store day stuff.
Crazy.
They jack up the price, but they also jack up the wholesale too. So they're all getting screwed on that. So it used to be one of the record stores here would do record store day, and he didn't even do a lot, but from what he made from record store day, he would make his rent for the entire year just on that one day. And he said now he barely breaks even on a lot of that stuff because he has to get so much, and then a quarter of it won't sell. Right. And because of a quarter of it won't sell, he's basically losing that couple bucks that he made off every record. So I said it's not even worth it anymore. So he still brings in stuff for record store day, but he discounts everything in his store 20% for that day so that he still makes a profit. And he does it through the discount in the rest of the store, not from the actual record store day stuff. So yeah, that's kind of turned into a scam too. And the only guys that are making big money on record store day are doing stuff like that. They're doing a big sale. They're having bands come in.
Sure.
Billy Hurst has bands come in and play all day long. He has a food truck come out. He discounts everything in the store, and he makes good money because of that. It has nothing to do with the record store days. Half of that stuff doesn't sell, and he's ended up putting it on eBay on eBay and stuff a couple days later, or Discogs when they're allowed to. So yeah, that's kind of turned into a screw job too.
Yeah, that's kind of a regret, and I can see where it went. I mean, obviously we just were kind of kidding about chasing the dollar a second ago, but it's true because if you think back when I first started going to record store day, 2010, 2011, like there was a different kind of vibe. I mean, obviously people were still camping out. A lot of the same habits, right? But and there were still the flippers. There would be the guys coming out with the big stacks and whatever, but seemed like more record stores had live music. Exactly what you're talking about, Steve.
Yeah.
What Billy does, Monster Music. I was there last year in South Carolina. They try to make it an event. Some of them are just literally just ordering it and treating it just as widgets. You know what I mean? Like just trying to move through them. So the vibe has definitely changed when it comes to record store, not just the price. I will say, they do a nice job of curating things that probably wouldn't have come to light if the hobby hadn't exploded. So it's it's kind of a catch-22, right?
I still go and I still buy a shitload of records only because you never know because I usually don't get the ones where it's a first press. So it'll say RSD first, which means it's going to get repressed a couple months later in a different color. But if it's a RSD exclusive or an exclusive like that, I'll usually get it. Just because you never know which one of those is going to shoot up in price, and you're not going to be able to get it a couple days later, And that's happened a few times where there were records I really wanted, and I couldn't make it for record store day. And it happens that the one or two that I wanted are the ones that are even today are like $300-$400, And you never know which ones that's going to happen with,
You mean Miley Cyrus Bangers? Do you regret passing on that?
I actually have that record, believe me.
Attaboy, so do I. Yeah.
I actually have that record.
Yeah.
Here's an even cooler thing. I didn't buy it on record store day. There used to be a raffle Facebook page where everybody pays a couple bucks for the raffle.
Okay.
And you pay like $1 per spot or whatever. And they would do some really good records, like $300-$400 records, Unfortunately, that Facebook page just kind of died off. Nobody uses it anymore. But I put like $2 in on the Miley Cyrus raffle and got that for $2, and I think it's going for like $700 now.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's that one, and then I think she did. I know too much about this, by the way. She did a picture disc for her web store that I found in a Half Price Books like a couple years later. So I have both of them, but that one too. I mean, silly money. That's like. If I'm in dire straits and I just need to get off of something, I mean, that stuff will go like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
I actually like her. I like the stuff she did with, what was the band that the Psych Band, not the Psych Band, but.
The the Dead Pets. Oh, I know what you're talking about. The God bless.
Yeah, I like the weird alternative stuff that she does like that, and I like that last album that she did where it was all basically Joan Jett. You know,
I like her rock stuff. I know that she.
I could live without the pop stuff she does, but
Wayne Coy. What? Rob, put you on the spot. What is his band? Come on.
is it Animal Collective? No.
No, it is. Oh, I can't believe I have to look this one up because I should know this one. Here we go. Oh, what a dope.
Flaming Lips. God
Flaming
damn it.
Lips. Son of a gun. You're better at YouTube. You're better at Google than I am.
I don't know why I couldn't get that out. Yeah.
I was thinking because they played a festival years ago, and I remember them because they did like their thing where they're in the plastic bubble and they go in there. Anyway, yeah. Son of a gun.
Yeah. Nathaniel got it.
Way to go. Way to go. You win the Google Wars, Nathaniel. I appreciate you.
No, but I have gotten some cool, like they did a Waylon Jennings a few years ago where they only did like 200 of them. And I was lucky enough to get that. But they've stopped doing that really exclusive stuff now. They're not doing that anymore. Like I have a couple friends that got stuff pressed for Record Store Day, and Record Store Day said that the minimum that they would allow them to press was like 2,500 or 3,500. And I think part of that is there's so many record stores now that there's more record stores than there are records getting pressed.
Oh, I totally believe it. Look no further than the Macho Man Be a Man release for this Record Store Day. They're only making 1,000 of them. Billy and I were just talking about this over the weekend, actually. You think there's probably nationwide, just in the U.S., call it 1,500 independent record stores. So that's not even one per store. You know, some stores maybe will pass, but those kind of things that kind of, I mean, not that everyone's running out and getting a Randy Savage rap record like.
Well, not just that, though. It gets even shadier because like two of the stores that were involved in getting Record Store Day started are here in Atlanta, and they'll both get like 30 copies of those records. You know, Bull Moose will get like 150 copies of
Bull
those.
Moose, yeah.
It doesn't matter how few there are. You know, Criminal Records, Bull Moose, a couple of the guys that were involved in actually starting Record Store Day make sure that they get a huge allotment. You know,
yeah, that guy at Bull Moose, his name escapes me, but he used to make those preview videos. Years ago, he was, but turns out, like you're saying, Steve, he was one of the founders of the whole Record Store Day thing. So
yeah, them, the guys from Criminal, and you know, and I just refuse to get in those lines. You know, I could go to Criminal downtown because they do get crazy numbers like that, but I'm not the guy that's going to spend the night to get some records. You know, whereas there's a record store right down the road that gets a huge allotment too, and I can get there at like 5 a.m. and be number 1 or 2 in line. You know.
So, Jason, you're making a good point again. You're making a lot of good points tonight. I know some record stores that don't participate in RSD, and if they've got cool used records and promo sale, then most do very well that day. Exactly what you're saying.
Well, it's like I said, Jason. I know quite a few record stores now. They'll still bring in the Record Store Day stuff just so they can advertise it and get people from different towns to come in, but they're not making money off of that. They put everything in the store on sale for 10% or 20% off. They bring in live music, they bring in food trucks, you know, and they make a whole event out of it. And every one of the guys I know that do a huge event like that do end up doing really well, better than a lot of the stores that exclusively bring in a shitload of Record Store Day stuff where they're only making a couple bucks per record.
Yeah. Hey, another regret that I had on my list when I was planning so diligently before I threw this live stream up was, and I was just talking to actually Robert Fifth over the weekend about this because he was at Billy's store and whatever.
Yeah.
And he just did a video about getting the Humming Guru, which is the ultrasonic cleaner du jour right now. Well, he enjoys it. Everyone I have talked to that has one. Do you have one? Oh, there it is. There. Yep. Product placement. Well done, Steve. Everyone I've talked to seems to enjoy it. I'm assuming you enjoy yours, Steve.
Oh yeah. So I've gone through every level. So I think I got a disc cleaner here somewhere that I've had for like 20 years. Mm-hmm. I bought a what's the Spin Clean about a decade ago. I used that for a couple years. I went from that to the Record Doctor, which is on the floor over there, which is a vacuum machine. And then now I've got this, and this blows away everything else that I've used.
Well, I love the technology. I actually have a degritter, and Rob's heard me. I think, Rob, you're on one of these streams where I was talking about I used my whole tax refund and just went for it, right? But my regret is literally the more I hear people talk about the Humming Guru, because you're literally talking about the cost of a Humming Guru is
$450 with all the stuff. Yeah,
15% or 20% of what a degritter costs. And so I love the degritter. It's actually right over here. It's very sleek. I was a sucker for that Steve Jobs design and all that kind of stuff, right? But honestly, my regret is I probably should have just not bit on the FOMO pill. And just because I could have got a Humming Guru for up here and a Humming Guru for not that
I remember looking at, I don't remember what the one, there used to be a bigger one. It's like this tall with the it was one of the first ultrasonics from years ago. It's been around for like 10 years.
It's like Vevco or something. Does that sound familiar?
I don't remember. And I remember looking at that. It was like $6,000. I was like, man, I bet that thing cleans them nice, but that's fucking crazy, And then not the degritter, but another one came out, and then the degritter came out. And I remember looking at those. It just wasn't worth that money to me. And then even when the Humming Guru came out, because it looked so cheap, I was like, I don't know about that,
Right.
And actually, after talking to Patrick a little bit, because Patrick was the same as me. I mean, Patrick has a VPI, which is a $1,000 or $800-$900 machine too. And he's like, he doesn't even use that anymore. It's down in his garage. If something's like really messed up, he'll put it on there.
Yeah.
But he said he's used that like twice since he got the Humming Guru. And I haven't used my vacuum machine a single time since I got it. So, and I actually just got a second tank in the mail a couple days ago.
There you go.
So that I can do the turgid clean in one and then fresh water in the other. So
is that what does Patrick have, 2 machines, or does he just have 2 tanks? I remember him saying
no, he has 2 machines.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But he has extra tanks too, so he can swap out the tanks.
Yeah. So
because he'll clean 2 at the same time. So I just do them as well. And my problem with the spin clean was the spin clean's kind of a pain in the ass. You got to set it up, and then you want to clean a bunch of records at the same time. And I would have, that's the reason my piles back here are so big, is because I would wait until I had like 50 or 60 records to pull out the spin clean and go through all the hassle of it. So I would have stuff just sit back here forever until I was in the mood to go through the whole cleaning process, And with the Humming Guru, I mean, it cleans it and dries it within like 4 minutes. And it's literally, I pull it off and pop it in the record player. And when you get towards the ends of your record, it's quiet enough that you can get the other record started, and have another record ready to go. Yeah, so it's perfect for me. And I'm somebody that listens to records all day. So
sure.
I've had that for about 2 months. I've probably put 300 records through it. And I haven't had a single one that it hasn't done a good job on. So.
Uh-oh.
What's up, man?
International sex symbol, one and only, Vinyl Richie. What is up, sir? How are you?
Vinyl Richie watches his records with turpentine.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you use Clorox to clean your records, or what are you using these days, Rich? Just the brush?
A brush.
I got one of those, too.
Yeah. I have a spin clean, but I haven't used it for a while. But I'm thinking of getting a Humming Guru, and I mean, I say this, but I probably won't. I think the best thing would probably run it through the spin clean, and then run it through the Humming Guru, and I think you would have a really nice clean record.
I thought about that. So I thought about, at first I would run it through the vacuum machine, because the brush would get in there deep, and then put it through the Humming Guru. But there was stuff that I had cleaned 2 or 3 times on my vacuum machine that still had like little pops and stuff. And one cycle through the Humming Guru, and that shit was gone. So I haven't even done that. I've just been using the Humming Guru by itself. And the only record, actually, I take that back. I pulled the vacuum machine out once, but it was for like a 1960s 45 that was all caked with dirt and shit that I didn't want to put in the ultrasonic first. I wanted to get it cleaned first. Yeah. So that's the only time I've actually pulled my vacuum machine out again.
Yeah, I have some 60s records that I do want to get cleaned. And the thing with the spin clean, I think it cleans the surface actually better than the Humming Guru. Like the fingerprints and visually. I think the Humming Guru will get into the grooves better than the spin clean.
Yeah. Oh, no, it definitely does. But like I said, if I've got some that are too dirty, like most of the stuff, a lot of the used stuff that I get, that if it's messed up like that, I'll probably throw it on the vacuum machine first and clean it. But I haven't had to yet. It does. Like I did have one recently where it was brand new. It came with fingerprints on it from the factory,
Bonus.
And the Humming Guru won't get those fingerprints off. But
hey, don't clean those off. There's probably a felon that was working in there, and you probably could help solve a mystery like Robert Stack would want you to.
It's the limited edition fingerprint.
Yeah, limited edition. A cocaine mule runner working in the plant. See,
a cocaine cowboy.
Yeah. Why don't take a piece of tape and lift those prints before you clean them, because you never know. You could solve a mystery. Oh, that's funny, Rob. You have a spin clean, right? Is that your cleaner du jour? All right, I know we talked about this before. Are you getting closer to joining the Ultra Revolution? Oh no.
Nope.
Well, here's what's funny. It was a noticeable, it's been a noticeable difference. So like the spin clean, like I said, I used that for probably 6 or 7 years. And then I bought the record cleaning machine and I used that for a couple years and it was better than the spin clean. And this one is it's actually quite a bit better than my vacuum machine is. So
Rob, hit us with a hot take. What's this controversial take you're about to lay on?
I'm wrong, but that's fine. It's my personal preference, and it's what I do in my music room. And I don't preach record cleaning to anybody. You can do whatever the hell you want. I don't think is it important to have clean records? Absolutely. The spin clean does fine for what I need it to do. For my personal preference.
Well, here's a funny. None of us cleaned our records back in the 80s.
Well, that's the thing.
Like we had a dishwasher, or what was it called?
Dishwasher. It was
we had the little dishwasher brush. My dad still got it at his house, but that's the most that we ever did.
I think most of my records really don't need to be cleaned, but I do have some that do.
Well, are you the type? Do you take good care of your stuff, Rich, or do you just don't play it that often, or why do you have to? Why aren't you joining the cleaning revolution like the rest of us?
Well, some of these 60s records, like these psych records, I think they could use a deep clean,
Sure.
But most of the new records I buy, they play fine. For me, it's an exception when I get a new record that doesn't sound good. So.
Even if it comes in
and I don't have a $20,000 setup either,
Yeah,
you don't. Come on, you don't have
speakers for $50.
Hey, you're not listening to punk unless you got $100,000 speaker. Ask Henry Rollins; he'll tell you.
That's the only way to listen to it. Oh, that's too funny.
That is funny.
Good stuff. The other thing I was thinking about, and maybe you guys don't feel this way, but. Vinyl Me Please, right? I don't know if you guys have ever bought Vinyl Me Please records. The regret I have is, and I still have this regret in the way they ship the product because they use these terrible mailers. That's a whole nother thing. But the way that they're loading these new records into the sleeves, I don't know what changed, but I do. Partly it's 180 gram vinyl. Partly they load these damn things into paper sleeves, or even if they're not paper sleeves, where the opening of the inner sleeve is basically pointing to the top of the jacket. And then if it's not packed right, which I think is part of the problem, when that thing's moving around, especially if you're ordering it mail order, that shit'll bust right through. Kills me. And Vinyl Me Please, for all the good that they do have some nice titles, and I'm not talking about color variants and all that bullshit, but when they do it right, they do it right. But that is one thing that them, and it's not exclusive to them. There's a lot of manufacturers are doing this, going back to the prison workers who are just slamming them in there. Like, it drives me up a wall.
I've gotten it from all of them. Vinyl Me Please. I would say 3 records a year they have to replace.
Yeah.
And I will say they're good now. Back in the day, it was a nightmare to get a Vinyl Me Please replaced like 5 or 6 years ago. And I stopped subscribing for a while. And then when they brought back the country stuff, or when they brought the country track, whatever they call it out, I started again. But nowadays, they replace it, no questions asked, and they don't even ask you to send it back. They tell you to give it to a friend, the other copy. So
yeah, sorry, I know Rob just joined. He won my contest, and the big prize was a Vinyl Me Please gift card. So he's new to his journey. So I'm definitely not trying to poo-poo the experience, but Steve's exactly right. Their customer service for the most part is pretty good, but they did go in this period where when I first joined 2017 or whenever it was. They were pretty good about replacing records. Then they got in this period where they weren't. They were just giving you like a $5 credit, some kind of nonsense like that. But when they took their prices up, I think the time before last, they've done it twice in the last 3 years. Then they got back to the like replacing it, no questions asked. Because Steve, you probably remember this. They were wanting footage if you had a warpy record, like kind of like Chad Kassem requires. They want physical. Either you got to break it.
That makes you destroy the record.
I mean, it's
like I had the UHQR Miles Davis. I had to destroy 3 of them, literally drill holes in them and send them the pictures with the holes drilled into them, and then they would send me a replacement.
Yeah, and I give them credit. That Clarity vinyl is hard to break. You were smart. You used a drill. I was trying to hammer. I was trying all kinds of shit.
No, I used the drill because I tried to break it and couldn't get the fucking thing to break. So I ended up getting a drill and drilling holes in it.
Insane.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. Unless they come up with something super amazing, I won't be buying any more of those UHQRs though.
Really? So the Exodus is the last one you're getting?
Unless they come out with something amazing that I just love and have to have, you know. I just haven't had a good. Only 2 of them have been quiet of the 6 that I bought. The rest of them I've had replaced multiple times. They still were never quiet pressing, so I'm pretty much done with them.
I can't see spending over $100 for a new record.
It's tough.
Maybe some rare psych record I would, but a new record, no way, dude.
What's if I can ask, what's the most you've ever bought for or paid for a record, Rich?
It's probably close to 200.
Okay.
It was like 180, I don't know, something like that.
And was it like a real rare punk record, or what was the story behind it?
No, it was a 60 psych record.
Okay. Those psych records, we were talking about that earlier. I mean, that's just shit. You want to talk about a time machine? My son's always asked me, if you could go back in time, where would you go? Shit, I'd go back to like 1966 and just swoop up all this shit and bury it in the ground somewhere, and it literally would be liquid gold for me today.
Load up the DeLorean, man.
Yeah, load up the DeLorean. Forget getting Sophia Loren back when she was in her 20s or any of that fun stuff. I'm loading up with some psych records, and I'm freaking living on a beach in Tikiki or one of those places I can't even pronounce.
Now, the only thing that drives me nuts about the UHQRs is everything else they release is quieter than their super quiet vinyl, you know?
That makes sense, you know?
Yeah, it drives me nuts that everything else they release is dead quiet, and then the quietest, lowest noise floor is the loudest vinyl that they're releasing. It drives me nuts.
That Miles. I mean, is that the one you had to put the drill in too, Steve? Because I heard a lot of stories back then that Miles, they took a lot of heat for QC on that stuff. Now, I will say this, so I'm gonna give Richie some credit here, because you know when Chad Kassem would jump on these streams here periodically, right, as he's prone to do. Richie is one of the few people that would just wouldn't blast him, but you wouldn't kiss the ring like it happens a lot when he blesses us with his presence. I think it was a year or 2 ago. He was on some stream. Rich just jumped on there and he wasn't having it. Loved it.
Who is this guy? I don't even know who the fuck It's not my realm at all.
Yeah, he did. Richie just joined it from your laundry room or the bunker? And
I think I was in the laundry room or maybe outside.
Yeah, and Richie is like,
everybody's like kissing his ass, and I'm going, who the fuck is this guy?
If you question him or you're critical at all, he like gets all pissed off and throws a fit.
Or
what did he tell Mansley? That was funny.
Oh shit! What did he say? Oh, shut the fuck up, dude, or whatever. Yeah.
That was awesome. Yeah, I was on there for that one.
That was fun.
Yeah, Aaron too. Aaron likes to fuck with him just to try to get him to pissed off too.
Yeah. Rob, do you have any other vinyl regrets? Put a bow on this topic and just keep streaming for a little bit longer after that.
I mean, I'm sure. They're all in the same vein of things I saw and I didn't pick up. But I mean, a common one that I'm sure a lot of people have is I didn't buy the Beatles mono box.
No, sure.
Now I bought them all individually, so I have them. But I don't have the box, which means I don't have the book, and the books that are in those are fantastic. So I'm never going to have it because what the hell's the point in buying it? I already have all the mono pressing.
I thought about buying it a couple times. The first and the second pressing, I almost bought it, but I don't listen to the first 5 records from the Beatles. And that's the main thing to buy the box for. You know what I mean?
I'm a Beatles nerd. I've got hundreds of Beatles records, so it makes sense for me. I just, at the time when it came out, I didn't have $350 or whatever the hell it cost, and now I kick myself. And
I've got a Japanese, the Japanese blue box that I'm about to sell because I never listened to it, you know. like I bought the recent box sets for all the. I like everything after Help. That's the Beatles that I like. Anything before that, I've got copies of it, nice pressings, but I'll never listen to them. Maybe
I think
one day.
Help was a turning point. I think was
Help is the one that I would listen to the most out of those early ones. But when I was young, and my dad's the opposite. He likes the first four. That's his sweet. He doesn't like the later stuff. So I grew up listening to the early albums because that's what he loved.
Sure.
But then as I got older and got into drugs, I liked the later albums.
Oh, fuck that.
Oh, good stuff. All right. Well, I'm going to put a wrap on the regrets conversation because I'll throw this on the pod. If you want to listen to yourself again, fellas, this will be on the podcast tomorrow, but we'll keep streaming for a little bit longer. It looks like we got some other people jumping in. I know Tuesday, I usually don't do the streams on Tuesdays. It's kind of impromptu, but it looked like it was crowded waters between Glenn does his a couple hours before this one. I think Patrick was streaming. So, I mean, it's a very, very, very stream centric day, but I'm glad I popped on here. What's going on in your world, Rich? I haven't seen you in a minute.
Nah, I'm taking a break from Rachel's stream. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, really? This the usual chicanery, or?
Well, I don't know, man. The wax just gets he rubs me the wrong way. He's funny sometimes, but the other day he called me a piece of shit, and I said, you know what?
Oh, I saw some of that. Yeah.
I just don't need it. So.
Well, what I want to ask you about is you put that video up of your troll, the Iron Sheik son.
Yeah.
Tell me the story on that because I saw that video and laughed my ass off. It was brilliant. It was a master stroke in literally taking the mirror and showing this reptilian piece of trash, camel clutch licking fool. So how did that come out? Has this person been trolling you for a while? What's the story there?
No, I honestly don't know what I did to piss him off. This was a few years back. And he uploaded this on a Friday night. And then, I was subscribed to the guy and I asked him, I go, what the fuck, what did I do, And then when I got up the next Saturday to see if he replied to me, the video was deleted. But somebody I know taped it.
Okay.
And then they edited it and they even put subtitles. It was pretty funny. So, but and it's on my channel from a few years back. But somebody was asking me about it, so I'll just put it back up. And because I put it back up, now my channel it got a restriction. I don't think my videos are going to be showing up in the recommended. When you're on your laptop, you have the recommended.
Yeah.
They're no longer going to be there unless it's someone that's subscribed to me. And
so this guy really got you in the boo-boo. You just reposted his.
Yeah, he got the final last word.
Well, he's also probably the Iron Sheik's son, and so he's probably being humiliated on the regular with butt stuff, if you know what I'm talking about. So the joke's probably on him. You may be in YouTube timeout, but he has to be the son of the Iron Sheik. So.
I met the Iron Sheik.
What? You met the Iron Sheik? Rob, you've met all these people. You met Sixto Rodriguez. I mean, you got the stories, dude. How'd you meet the Iron Sheik?
I was coming back from a business trip from North Carolina, and I flew into Pearson International in Toronto. It was a Friday, and I had a wicked migraine, and I just wanted to get home. I had a carry-on, so I didn't have to pick up my bags, and I'm just about to walk out of the terminal. There's a small crowd of people, and I hear the voice, which
it's pretty recognizable. Yeah,
and I'm like, holy shit, it's the Iron Sheik.
So you walked up and said, "Are you the stalker of Vinyl Richie on YouTube?"
I did, absolutely, and he goes, "No, that was my son."
that was son of Iron Sheik, you son of bitch.
Yep.
Oh, that's funny. So, hey, Rich, hey, listen, man, you're getting the audience wants to know. So, Louis Golden, a very good channel. I think Louis been doing videos a couple months now. Says, Richie, do you have more than one first press of Walk Among Us?
Actually, I have one second press. I don't have a first press.
Check that out, Louis. I hope that didn't ruin your evening because that would be a shame.
When that came out, I bought it on cassette.
Wow.
Yeah, everybody. That's what another thing that all these guys are like. Oh yeah, the 70s and 80s. I only collected records. Most of those guys are full of shit. Most of those guys were listening to cassettes like the rest of us.
Cassettes, hell yeah, hell yeah.
You know, I mean, my dad had a shitload of records, but as soon as cassettes got cheap in the early 80s, fuck man, that's all we were buying.
Well, if you recall, when Walkmans were out, there wasn't a Discman for years later. That Walkman was the first mobile music player.
Well, plus you could take it in your car. I mean, that's what people, that's really why, people say, oh, they just try to get us to buy this other stuff. No, it's because you could take it in your car. That's the reason cassettes got big. That's the reason CDs got big. It wasn't because you could play them in your house. It was because you could take the fucking things in your car, Yeah,
portable, right? I mean, like a great podcast. You can take it with you wherever you go. See what I did there, fellas? Now, Louis, I'm sorry. We have it ruined not only my evening but my entire life. Louis, please tell me that's not the case. Please. There's so much to live for. There's a new UHQR coming out in a couple months.
The Misfits stuff and the Sam Hain, and I mean, you could still get that stuff for relatively cheap 10 or even 5 years ago. That's more stuff that's shot. I mean, the singles have always been expensive for punk. But 5-6 years ago, you could still get the early Misfits pressings for under $40. Now they're all like $200-$400.
Not in LA. They were $50 or above.
Even $50 for an early Misfits isn't too bad, but
yeah,
it's better than the singles. The singles $4,000 for a Misfits single.
Yeah, it's what. A record that I heard it's getting repressed is that SSD Control from I think the Washington D.C.
Yeah,
you know that band. Their first record, man, on Discogs they're selling it for like $1,000 plus, and they're all from Europe, and it's like they only printed 500, maybe 1,000 of these. How did they all end up in Europe? I'm kind of suspect on that.
Yeah, I don't trust that. There's some records that I've seen that are like that I really want, but it's in like Belarus or the Ukraine or some shit like that, and I'm just not going to take the chance.
Hang on, you're not buying records from Kazakhstan? Because I see that pop up on Discogs lately, and it's like, you know what? If you believe that there's good records in Kazakhstan, I've got a bridge to sell you. Give me a break.
But yeah, the box set stuff is getting crazy though. Now they're jacking the prices up of the box sets, and if you just wait a couple months, you get them for like. I mean, that Motley Crue box just came out for like $190. It's already like $100 on Amazon.
Yeah, I learned that with the Skid Row box that came out a year ago. That one was that was a mistake. I bought it. I think it may have been 30 off retail, and I was like, oh, I'm getting a great deal. Fast forward 3 months later, it was 50% off retail, 60% off retail.
I did that. So I really wanted the Soulfly box. I love those first few Soulfly albums, right? Sure. But it was like $240 for 5 records. I was like, dude, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. We got it for like $105 right before Christmas. So yeah, stay away from these box sets. They're getting ridiculous, man. The Bowie boxes are the same way.
I wonder how much the Revolver box set's going for now.
That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting until it goes down because I do want it. Yeah, but I've done that with all of them. So the Let It Be box set I got for like 50% off. The White Album I got for like $35. That was what, $99 when it came out.
Yeah.
All right, fellas, you're gonna have to help me with this one. Jazz Bums Mike, hot off the press. How about an OG Minor Threat? What's that going for?
Dude, they're like $4,000.
No shit.
It's time for me to start selling.
I was gonna say, hey, we just figured out, and we're gonna make you a rich man.
All the Ian, well, maybe not the Minor Threat. No, what was the band? Was it Teen Idols?
That was their first release. The second release was Minor Threat.
All the Ian MacKaye stuff he did real limited, and it goes for crazy money now.
Yeah, I have
Minor Threat's been repressed like 100 times. That's the other good thing about Ian MacKaye. He represses all that shit pretty regularly.
Yeah, and they charge a lot.
This is exactly your point, though, Steve. So I saw this today too. The Rolling Stones mono box, the topic du jour about a month ago is $344 on Amazon. Looks like they've got some stock they've got to work through.
How much was it new? How much was it when it came out?
I felt like it was like $400, más o menos, depending on when you got it, who you got it from, kind of thing. But yeah, so it's already $40.
It must be a lot of records in there, huh?
Yeah, it's a huge box. I want to say it's like 15 albums or something.
It's like 16, I think. Yeah. All
that's
in.
crazy.
But that's
have
actually
I need.
that's kind of a legit price though. 15 or 16 records for that price.
Yeah.
A lot of these box sets are like 4 records, and it's like
Yeah.
$350, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's.
And the Motley Crue was the worst because you could buy the records individually, the same
Cheaper.
exact colors, for $25 a piece, but the box set was $200.
Well, that's what they did.
The box, you know.
So there's that magazine Revolver that did that a couple of years ago on the Pantera box. They had like this, it had those same albums that came out in the color variants tucked in this little box that said Pantera. I mean, I bought one. I'm a sucker, right? But yeah, then they charge like a ridiculous just for this goofy box and a COA tucked inside. I mean, it's that one got me.
That's like what is it? Michael 45 RPM. He goes on. Oh, the texture of the box.
Gorgeous.
Out of here with that bullshit, dude.
Well, he says some stupid shit too. So he was talking about the Exodus box today. He opened up the bags. He's like, "Oh, it's got the Stoughton jacket. It's not a Stoughton jacket, Or he was talking about the Doors mono, and he's talking about you could hear the separation from the speakers, and that's not mono. Mono, you can't hear the separation from the speakers, So, yeah, I'm not a fan of his.
This is true. Yeah. The higher price tags are one thing. Finding the buyer is another. Yeah, I mean that sounds like eBay to me. If you go on eBay, eBay's always been this way. But people would always, especially if you go to the record shows and you find that dealer's got really some great shit, but it's way overpriced, and it's because they're basing their prices on eBay comps that things haven't sold. They're not even using that sold thing. They're literally basing off. Well, somebody's going on eBay right now for $500. That's why I'm selling it for $475.
Well, a lot of the boxes that were legitimately limited shoot up in price, but most of the stuff they're pressing now, they're pressing 20,000 copies of or whatever and just trying to blow them out. Like I remember the Ozzy box set. I told everybody, man, buy that thing. There's only 5,000 of them, and Ozzy, once they sell out, I mean, they took a while. They took like a year to sell out.
It did.
But once they sold out, they like quadrupled in price.
Yeah,
that's something with that first Bowie box. That first Bowie box, they only made like 3,000 of them. And it was $150. It was cheap, or $160 I paid for it. It's like $1,700 now,
Yeah, the
video on that.
What's that?
Set. I remember watching your video on that box set.
It's a great box. I've bought all the box, but the funny thing is, everyone out because he died right after that first box came out. So then, trying to make money off of his death, they did like 10,000 of every box after that, and they were all like $350 brand new. But if you waited like a few months, you could buy it for like I bought the 80s box for like $120. The only one that I paid almost full price for was the newest one, and the only reason I did that is because I sold 2 original Bowie records and it paid for the whole box.
Sure.
So
no, that Ozzy box, I wish I would have bought a second one. I bought one just because they said there were some albums that were first time on vinyl, that kind of No More Tears, I think was first time on 2 discs, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, for $500, which is a lot of money. I mean, I'm not trying to be flippant about it, but exactly what you're talking about, Steve. I mean, they're going for $2,000, maybe $3,000. I haven't looked at
Well, and Ozzy did a good job. People can say what they want. I mean, I had an original pressing of No More Tears. The box set blows it away. Yeah. I sold that, and that basically paid for the box in reality. Yeah,
because it was a $300 record around that time.
But it always sounded like shit, but I had it just because I had to have it,
So David Bianco, good question. Will Exodus, UHQR rise in value? I think not. I think it's going to plateau here shortly because I think the people who missed out on the terrible computer situation.
What's it going for right now?
You're talking probably 300. I think last time I looked at it.
That's probably about where it's going to settle.
I kind of think so too because I think
the other ones. If you look at that's a
lot of one record. Come on.
The Aqualung is sitting about $300. The only reason the first Jimi Hendrix is so much is because they only did like 1,000 of them.
Right, it was one of the, and it was the first one or first or second one, wasn't it?
No, it was the first one that they did.
Look, watch this, fellas. I'm pretty slick at this. Hang on, we're gonna go live to the man on the street. Here we go. Ready? Boom. All right. So we've got 325. Let's see. Yeah, I think you're right, Steve, because it looks like the median, I mean, the highest, it's maxed at 400. And again, this is Discogs. It's all subjective, really. But yeah, I think the secondhand market folks are kind of getting their fill if they missed out on that computer, America Online computer system they have over there. But yeah, I don't expect this one to be super collectible. I can appreciate it being 3,500 copies, but I don't. Yeah, exactly what you're saying, Steve. I don't think that this was like the Hendrix was the first one where this one's going to be like super expensive or anything.
And I think, believe it or not, I think Rastaman Vibrations was a better selection than X. I know a lot of people love Exodus, but man, Exodus is the most played out Bob Marley songs all on one record.
More than Legend. Legend is the one that every
Well,
frat
I mean,
house
that's the greatest hit stuff. Yeah, but 5 of the songs from Legend are off of Exodus.
Yeah.
Rastaman Vibrations is a way better album.
What's that?
I think Rastaman Vibrations is a way.
Oh
better
yeah,
album.
that's the one I've been listening to. I've only listened to the Exodus I listened to it like 3 times, and it's just been sitting here since then. But I've been listening to that Rastaman Vibrations quite a bit. I love that one.
What'd you say, Rich? I didn't hear you.
Can I see that box again?
Yeah, you.
Hang on, we don't want to be selling each other boxes.
Mazzy will send you the box for free.
Louis, I think you echo the sentiments of a generation when you say, "I wish Phil from Pantera wasn't such a dickhead." Although I'm actually very excited to see whatever this Pantera iteration is coming.
Yeah, I'm going to see him too.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I mean, I like Zakk Wylde. I know his tone sounds a little bit different than Dimes, but I mean, if this is as close as you're going to get to hearing those songs live, and Phil, I'm kind of excited about that.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know what I think about that. We'll see how the Tough Gong pressing sound.
I don't know. I heard this. I know Wax kind of broke that news on the stream a couple weeks ago, but maybe it's naivete, if that's the word, or maybe it's just I'm not really excited about it. But when I heard that they're pressing him in Jamaica, I mean, Jamaican press records don't have a history of sounding great. That's kind of my point. I haven't heard of anything like this being stellar. Nothing against Jamaica as a country.
That's not even my issue, though. My issue is it's a brand new pressing plant that they just built.
Yes.
And Third Man sounded like shit when they first started pressing records. Quality sounded like shit when they first started. It seems to take everybody like a year to get the process down pat.
It's like a car. You don't want to buy the first year of model of a car.
Look at Apple products. If you talk about the iPhone, you talk about the iPod, all that kind of stuff. The first one was, I wouldn't say, but everyone is buying into the hype. Same thing. You're talking about first pressing plans. Vinyl Be Pleased has got their operation due to go live probably this summer, and they're going to do Pearl Jam Yield 25th anniversary. First of all, the price is crazy. They want $60 for a 2-disc, 33 RPM. And the reason I'm not buying it, I love that band. I would buy it if it was coming pressed somewhere else, but it's literally probably, if it's not the first, it's going to be one of the first titles rolled out there. And I need to know that they know what they're doing. I know they got Gary from Acoustic Sounds opening up that facility, but man, I'm not buying. There's no way. I will wait for a repress on that.
That's
a band. Pearl Jam's a funny one, man. Oh, what'd you say?
That's one of my favorite Pearl Jam albums.
Oh, is it?
Great album. Yeah. Great album. I mean, I have an OG, and I know
it
could probably sound better.
That was where they lost me.
Really?
I liked a couple songs on it. It's funny. It seems like the guys like me that really love the first 4 albums don't really like the later stuff. I don't know why, but I don't know. I just don't like the direction they went after that. They're almost like a jam band now.
I don't like the stuff that came after, but I think Yield is a great album.
Yeah.
And you got to pick up Benefit by Jethro Tull, dude. That's maybe their best album, dude.
Yeah, I remember seeing it a bunch of times. You know what it was? With that album cover, it looks like a comp to me. You know what I mean? It's a weird album cover, so I never bought it. But I'll have to grab that one.
Man, I gave Louis Golden the comment of the night, but this is a pretty good one. For sure, Michael 45 is definitely compromised.
Well, he's only been collecting records for a couple of years. I mean, let's get real.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't mind him. I don't mind it. Yeah, I think he's a nice guy. I just, especially when the MoFi stuff, and he still makes these underhanded comments, where these were records he loved and thought sounded amazing. And the day the news came out, all of a sudden oh, that record sounded terrible. Like records he was just talking up like a week before, all of a sudden he was trashing, you know. And I just lost. I don't care what anybody says. All of those Miles Davises blow the originals away. They sound so good.
Right.
The Bob Dylans all sound amazing. You know, so people can say what they want. Most of the MoFi, and the thing with MoFi is I've only ever got one bad MoFi record where it was like a noisy record.
Sure.
And it was just a fluke, you know, whereas every other, even Analog Productions, I've had to get quite a few replaced because they just sounded like shit. So
I'm going to cut Michael 45 some slack on the MoFi, and here's why. You guys could probably relate. You guys are players in your own world. You ever been around that beautiful woman, and you see her from afar, and you get to know her. She doesn't say a lot, but man, she's beautiful. She's beautiful. Looks good in anything. Looks good in a dress. Looks good in a business suit. But then she smiles.
So Michael 45 looks good in the dress and in the
it's exactly the analogy I'm going for, Steve. No, but follow me on this one. So good looking woman. But then all of a sudden, and she doesn't talk, but something's going on with the teeth. You can't really tell. And then she opens up, and you make her laugh that one time, and she's got them bad teeth. That's what Michael had going on with MoFi. He was loving it. He was loving it. He was loving it. And then as soon as he saw them bad teeth, you can't go back from bad teeth. You just can't.
What's funny though is there were a lot of us. Like I talked to him like 6 months before that news came out, where he was talking about how everything is analog, and I told him I had multiple pressings from MoFi that have been rumored since the 80s that we know weren't from the original tapes, because the original tapes were damaged, but they still sat on there from the original masters, you know. And so they've never been an honest company as far as that. Now, I don't think anybody expected that they were using digital sources in the back end, but still, all of those records that sound good still sound good.
Yeah, I could care less.
Yeah.
Hey Vance, I know you're out there. Did you order that Vinyl Me Please Yield? Oh, you got yours through the 10 Club. I guess you did. That answered my question. I was curious.
Listen, fellas, I got to.
Rob, you need to go take some of those airborne and get you back on the road to recovery.
Yeah, man.
You got that.
Work comes early in the morning. So.
I'm with you. Thanks for coming on, pal. I'm gonna wrap this up here in a little bit anyway. Good to see you, Rob. Take care, man.
Ciao.
See, now Felipe, he's a dentist. He knows. That's why I went to teeth. Felipe, I knew you were out there. You can appreciate that analogy. That's exactly where I was going.
Well, and hang on. Yeah, Louis, a lot of these audio files are full of shit, because a lot of these guys, if you saw their videos 5 or 6 years ago, they didn't know shit about records, and all of a sudden they're experts and know everything, you know. Yeah, all the audio file stuff is bullshit. Well, I make good money. I can afford to buy some of the audio file stuff for records I love, so I buy it. But you know, before I bought a lot of those audio file records, I was more than happy with the pressing I had, you know.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, not to bring up the MoFi thing, you're exactly right. The records didn't sound different the day before you knew this and the day after you knew this. I do think that they should be kicked into balls about the kind of misleading with the silver stripe and what that they knew what the marketplace thought that represented. But at the end of the day, have I bought a MoFi record since then? Yes. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's not blood money. It's not blood diamonds. It's records.
Yeah, I just got this one in.
Oh, did you? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I still buy the Miles Davises. There's still some that I still buy. And
see, I haven't bought any since, but it's not because of the digital or whatever analog. It's because the titles they offer, I'm just not interested.
Thank you.
Well, see, that's so the one steps.
I'm not done yet. The ones they do offer that I'm interested in, it's 45 RPM, and I hate that shit.
Yeah.
You don't need to. You can make a good quality 33 RPM record. You don't need to put a single record on 2 LPs. Okay,
yeah, that's true, Jason. That's true too. Yeah,
no, 100%. Yeah.
It's
100%.
Definitely a persona that he puts on for YouTube.
Well, listen, I've been watching Michael 45 long enough to remember. Remember, he used to make his videos. I mean, he's got a sleeve of tattoos. Why don't you see the tattooed arms anymore? It's all these big bulky sweaters. I want my Michael 45 to show that ink, to be one of the people. I don't need my prepackaged Michael 45. I want to see the ink again. Bring that 45 back and we'll talk.
And like I said, when you're talking to him, he's a super nice guy, you know. But yeah,
Oh yeah. This is
and he's making a lot of money off of this, so you know.
He is.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Show me the tax receipt, Steve. I want to see where he's making money now. That's funny.
Just off of that club. I mean, just off of that club, he's making.
Oh yeah, that club is kind of sketchy, if you ask me.
Well, not just that. Thor talked about it. You know, Thor, he got a first press. One of the first press. I think it was a Pink Floyd that he got, or one of the early UK pressings, and it sounded amazing. But you're paying Michael 45 to be a part of the club every month. And then whoever is it Stoney that's doing the buying? Whoever's doing the buying, they're charging a premium on top of what you could just buy it for yourself on Discogs, you know? So, yeah, it's...
Hey, to each their own. To each their own. If it's making people happy, makes me no different. Yeah. I'm not losing any sleep over it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
Good stuff. All right, well, fellas, I think I'm going to wrap it up. I'm so happy you guys came up here. Rich, thank you. I know we got to do a formal one when I have a real topic that we can use your expertise on. This was just literally fly by the seat of my pants, but I'm glad you came up, man.
Oh, man, I'll be happy to.
Awesome. And Steve, thanks for coming up. You helped add some real knowledge. Me and Rob just trying to wing it. You brought some real subject matter expertise.
I just make shit up, dude. Don't think it's knowledge.
Well, you do a hell of a job of it, Steve. Awesome. Everybody, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. And
all right, guys,
we'll do the next one. See you later.